Hey everybody, Rachel here from Rachthestamper.com, and I thank you for stopping by today to check out my entry in the Team Stamp It Halloween blog hop. So I actually have two cards. So this is the card I made the other day, and then I decided to make a video for it, so I would make a slightly different card. So thanks again to my friend Donna. She sent me all these great wobblers. I'm not mistaken, you can get these pretty much at any craft store or probably on Amazon as well. But they're really fun to play with. So I made this card with crushed curry. Using crushed curry ink, I just stamped all over the background to create a sort of designer series paper, not dinosaur paper. And then I used some of the Halloween Bash designer series paper, and then a few of the images from the Wonderfully Wicked stamp set. I also layered two of these together, and these are actually the dies that go along with the Spooktacular Bash. These are called Ornate Frames dies, and these are definitely for more than just Halloween. So if you're looking at this and you're kind of like, well, I'm not really Halloween, you could use these for so many different things. So I want to show you another version of this card that we're going to create today. Now for this one, we're going to actually use Blackberry Bliss, which is a great, really deep Halloween color purple. And then we're going to use another piece of the designer series paper. This is cut 3 by 4. You could use either side, but I thought this side would be fun. And since it has a little bit of crushed curry in it, I decided to back it onto a 3 1/8 by 4 1/8 piece of crushed curry. So we're going to stamp all over the background of this, but we're going to do it a little bit differently. Now, I still am torn, and I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to fib because, you know, I always tell you the truth. I still don't know until I'm going to pour which one I want to use. My thoughts were two things. What I was going to do was, first I was going to stamp up, and I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. I have the spider web, and then I have creepy and spooky. So I'm going to stamp these three things all over the background of this piece. And again, this is my base card. So it's 4 1/4 by 11, score at 5 1/2. But I don't know if I want to do it with Versamark and Blackberry Bliss and then use clear embossing powder, or if I want to do it with black. So I'm still kind of up in the air at this point. But what I'm going to do first is I'm going to prep my base. Move this over. So I'm going to hit this with my embossing buddy, just so we don't get anything sticking basically where we don't want it. So this cuts down on static. You are going to also need a heat tool. So you want to make sure you have that handy. Cool thing, just in case you've not seen this before, my friend Lisa makes these. They are part of Crafter Solutions. This is called the Emboss. It holds your embossing tool so you can have it heating up and ready and don't have to worry about the tip burning anything. You can find them on Etsy and on Facebook at Crafter Solutions. So what I'm going to do, I already have this all inked up. And I think just for something different, I'm going to go with black. But I might have to do another one another time and use the clear embossing with the Blackberry Bliss. So I'm going to show you this, what you would do just in case. If you were to want to emboss with something that we don't have an embossing color, this is what you do. So you would take your stamp, and first you're going to ink it in Versamark. And then you're going to dip it into your ink of choice, and you're going to stamp it. And then what you would do is you would sprinkle the powder on top. So I'm going to close this up, and I'm going to just stick with Versamark. And I'm not going to wipe this off because even though, well, it is a little bit dark. Even though your pad is stained, it does not leave stains necessarily on your, it won't transfer, is what I'm saying, from one to the other. So I'm going to just stamp a few cobwebs. The Versamark does stay wet longer. And then I'm going to just go and stamp some spookies. If you notice it doesn't stay wet as long as you think it should, you could also re-ink it with a Versamark ink refill. Creepy. And I kind of want some of these to stick out in other places. So some of them a little bit off the page. And I'm going to do another couple spookies. So I'm going to bring one down here. And that looks pretty good. All right, so now what I'm going to do is close this up. I'm going to grab my handy dandy coffee filter, and I'm going to sprinkle this, I said, with black. So I'm going to sprinkle this with black embossing powder. I'm just dumping it all over. Turn it around. And I have reused this coffee filter, I can't even tell you how many times, so you don't need a new one every time, or even for every color. And I'm going to show you one thing I goofed up, but I'm going to go with it because it's a Halloween card. So at some point I probably had a little bit of ink on my finger, so when I touch that it might have stuck. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try first by opening this up. I do fold mine in half, which sometimes can be detrimental, as you can see. But I'm going to open this up and I'm going to flick it. really hard. And that gets most of it off. If it didn't get all of it off, you can go ahead with a little paintbrush. There's a little spot here I want to cover. You can go ahead with a paintbrush and brush it off, but since it's Halloween again, I'm not going to really be too anal about it because it could technically be, we'll say, ghost fingerprints. So I'm going to close this up. Now my flicking did get a little advantageous there, and I kind of got a little bit of black embossing powder all over the place. So make sure you have a nice surface that you're not really worried about messing up when you do it. What I'm going to do is what I normally do, which is just grab my little towel here and just wipe it off. All right, so you do want to clean your stamps off, especially when you're using Versamark, because it is a sticky ink, so it does tend to attract goop, as is the best way to describe it. I'm going to turn my heat tool on to heat for a minute, so I apologize, it's going to be a little loud. I want to get it really hot before I heat this up. That way there will be less warping. Another thing you could do is get a old cutting board that maybe you don't use anymore and line it with foil, and what it will do is reflect back to make it warm up faster, so it doesn't really necessarily warp your card as much. So I'm just going to begin by just moving this around, heating up my embossing powder, and then I also do use the other side. Now it does not necessarily heat it any different, but I do find that it keeps the cardstock a little bit straighter. So everything is starting to heat, and that's why I also said you definitely want to wipe off your surface underneath or protect your surface, because you certainly don't want to heat embossing powder onto your desk because you will not be able to get it off. Or whatever surface you craft on, I guess I should say. Just going to go underneath just a little, staying on the top. Again, this is the spider web. So again, this is an easy way if you want to create your own background, make your own DSP. We could have also done this with just plain black ink, but I think sometimes the layering and the lifting part of the embossing powder makes for a really cool finish. I'm just making sure everything is nicely melted, and then I'm just going to go and just generally heat this so it's kind of smooth. Alright, so I am going to give this a moment to cool down, and then what we can do, if you want to ensure that this is really smooth, and you can see it's shiny now, so that's how you know it's embossed. It's powdery before you heat it, and then it's shiny once it's actually finished. So if you notice any places that are dull, you could always go back over and reheat them a little bit. You do want to be careful with this because it will burn your skin if it is not cool. So what you could do if you wanted to is you could put this in between a piece of printer sheet, like just blank printer paper, and run it through your Big Shot, and it will flatten it out a little bit. So that's something simple you can do as well. I'm going to go ahead and adhere this to the background panel, and then we're going to cut out a few little pieces. And I do have a couple ideas of what I want to do for this. So since this is a very tight fit, you just want to make sure that it's lined up really nicely. You could also sponge the edge of this with a little bit of the Blackberry Bliss ink if you wanted to. So what I'm going to do for this is I'm going to, what did I decide I wanted to do for these? I'm going to color some of these in. So for him and him, I'm actually going to do them just in black ink, but I'm going to use Memento black ink. That way I can color them in a little bit with the Copics, and then we're going to trim them out and back them up onto something. Okay, so I'm going to stamp Dracula, and I have, oops, a mummy, and I'm spacing these apart because these do have dies that will cut these out. There's the mummy, and then I have 3 bottles of some crazy stuff here. These do not, I don't believe they have a die, so these are pretty simple though to hand cut out. And then we're going to add one more thing. We're going to do that on the inside though, because we do need a lighter panel, obviously, because you can't really see very much unless it's black on there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just trim this out while I wait for these to dry, because you do want to make sure they're dry when you're coloring those with the Stampin' Blends. I'm going to trim this down to 4 by 5 1/4, and I have, what did we want to use for this? I think I'm going to do have a spooktacular Halloween, because that's pretty fun. So we'll do that, and I'm going to stick with black for that. So let me grab my Memento one more time. Just ink that up. And I'm going to pop this in the center. Make sure I want a flat piece of my desk. My desk is actually made out of old church benches. My grandfather made me this desk. So it has a little bit of ridges in it sometimes. So sometimes my stamping is a little off. All right, so I did this and not even thinking. This probably should have been in Very Vanilla, but I'm going to put it in anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and cut these out. And let me just show you the dies, and then we're going to back these up onto some other dies. So you do have lots of dies in here. You have those ornate frames. This one will cut this out exactly, so we're going to cut those two out. And as I'm not mistaken, these do not have ones, but I already cut and colored some of these ahead of time, so I'm just going to do those. And there's also a really cool one if you were to want to cut this out. This matches this almost exactly, and it's stitched, so that's really cool as well. So you could always pop that up if you wanted to. Okay. All right, so let me cut these out, and then I'm going to cut out a little background layer as well. I'm just using my Big Shot to cut these dies out. Or to cut these stamped images out with my die, I should say. And then we will color these in just a little bit with some Stampin' Blends. So here's one. And here's two, so we have that. So what I'm going to do is, for Dracula, I'm kind of just going to go a little bit with the red, because you know he tends to wear a red, like a little shirt underneath. So I'm just coloring this red just a little bit. I'm going to use my, if I grab the correct one, my light, no, that's Highland Heather. I want my light purple Posy. Because for some reason, for me, I always feel like they have like a little purplish tint to their skin. So even though it's on vanilla, I'm just giving him a little purple tint. You could always color these, or cut these out, I should say, on white. Stamp them on white. Since you're going to be coloring them in, I'm going to give him a little green. Kind of like the dark circles under his eyes. I'm going to go with a light green. Just go just a little bit of old olive. That little Dracula-esque look. And then with the purple Posy dried and coming in with it again, it's just giving it a little bit of light shading. A little bit more on his hand. And then for the background, I'm going to color it in just to color it a little bit. I'm going to do a little bit of blue. So I'm just going with the light balmy blue on the, which kind of almost looks like a little grayish, so it works out really well. This is just on the background. And I'm going to grab a little bit of the dark balmy blue just to give one side a shadow. And just kind of like so, you can see it looks like there's a shadow around him. Not being really careful with this. I'm just going to blend it out a little bit with the light blue. All right, there's that one. So for the mummy, to kind of give him like that dingy look, I'm going to come in with light So Saffron, and I'm just going to add a little bit of color to his wrap. Just like that. And then I'm also going to grab a light, is this Smoky Slate? Yes, it is. So a light Smoky Slate. You could also do this with a little bit of crumb cake if you wanted to. Kind of gives him like that dingy look. And then I'm going to use the green for his eyes, like so. And what would be a good one? How about some light pumpkin pie, just for something different. So I'm going to go with light pumpkin pie And then I'll bring in just a little bit of dark pumpkin pie around, just to do the same thing like I did with Dracula for the shadow. Again, I'm not being really super careful with my coloring, only because it's not supposed to be really perfect. It's Halloween-y. Halloween stuff is always a little off in a good way. I love Halloween. Just blending it out a little bit with the light again. There we go. All right, so I have those two, and then I'm going to have my little bottles. I have the frog and the spider and the bones. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out a piece of something for each of these. So I think I'm going to do crushed curry as the backing piece because it will definitely stand out against that. So I'm just going to cut out two frames, two of the ornate frames to match those. So that's a little too small. 1, 2, and then for this one, I'm going to do that. There we go. So I'm just going to pop two of these, and then the one I'll have to just do twice, into my Big Shot just to run these through. And almost done. Again, you could certainly put one of these on a wobbler if you wanted to, one of the front ones. On the other card, I went with the inside being a wobbler, which I think turned out pretty cute. Now, I'm going to tell you one thing. These frames are very, very detailed, so when you pull them out, you do have to be a little bit careful, because if not, you can rip off some of the little curly pieces. But one other thing you can do, so this one came apart pretty easily, is you can run it through 2 times, so kind of back and forth, and then they will just drop out like butter. So just run your forward pass and then run your backward pass. And then you can see this just comes apart super, super smoothly. So one other thing, if you have your paper piercer or your take your pick tool, you can just pop the rest of these out. And what I'm going to do to wrap this together is just sponge this with a little bit of Blackberry Bliss, just to bring that other color back in. Okay, there's that one. This one probably I could have run back through one more time and they would have popped out much easier. So just remember, when you do run these ornate frames through, go back and forth. Actually, I'm going to put this through one more time just because it'll be a little simpler. And you'll see. So all you're going to do is I'm just going to line this back up right where it was. You can kind of feel it set right in the groove. So I'm going to pass this through one more time. Another thing you can do to make it run through a little easier, if you have an exact piece of cardstock, is to actually run it through your die cutting machine upside down. So the die cutting part is facing up, and you'll see this will just come out super duper easy. And I could potentially have just slightly mislined this, but that's good enough. We're going to stick with that. All right, and then other thing is too, when you have these dies, you do want to make sure that you clean them out, because if they have anything stuck in them, it doesn't make that part cut as easy. So just keep that in mind when you're done with your dies, to make sure you clean all the little paper bits out of them. It makes them run through much, much simpler. And I'm going to do one more piece just to kind of do a little focal spot. And I wanted to do this and I forgot. So I'm going to grab one more piece of scrap blackberry, and I'm actually going to run this through because this is going to be for my little 3 pieces here, and then I'm going to back it with this. So I'm going to do this one time as well. And I'm going to just do the same thing where I'm going to run this back and forth twice so it drops out a little bit easier. And then this will layer really nicely with that yellow piece and all the little accent pieces. Yep, only had a couple little poppers to pop out on that, so this worked out really well. Okay, so let me move these out of the way. And what we're going to do, keep those over there so I know which ones I used for you guys. So I'm going to go ahead and put some adhesive on the back of this and hook this together so this lines up perfectly. Has a little bit of a line around it. Okay, so there's that. And these little guys I'm actually going to pop up on, if I can find them. Here's a bigger one, but I have, when you get the black dimensionals, which are new, these come in mini dimensionals and big dimensionals in the same pack, so that's pretty handy. Definitely like that. So I'm going to put a couple minis on this one and then one more big one on this guy here. So I have these little dudes here. I'm going to just put directly down. Same with this one. Okay, pick these up. Put the bones in the center. Actually, I think I'm going to put this over here since it's a little taller. There we go. Okay, and then all we got to do is put the rest of this together. So we're going to, so this we could put up on the top. We could put these two dudes here and put this one on the inside. Actually, this might work out really well because then we might be able to fit a wobbler on the back of this one. Let's see. Oops. Yeah, actually I'm going to trim just this little bit down. So these wobblers do come in all different sizes. I'm going to trim just the top part down. For the bottom part, it doesn't really matter because it's going to be underneath anyway. And then we'll put this on the inside. All right, so what I'm going to do, so I have this. I'll put these guys down. Oops. Still have to put this guy, attach him. All right, so I have my base card there. I'm going to attach my layer onto that. You could pop this one up if you wanted to. Put these two dudes here. Can't cover up Frankie. Love him. He always reminds me too of my grandfather. His name was Frank. He wasn't scary, but... All right, so then I'm going to attach this to the back of this little crazy piece here, because I trimmed this down. Kind of just like that. All right, and then this one, now that it's dry, is going to go on the inside. It's covered with black embossing dust. All right, and then all you have to do is peel the back of this off. You could use your take your pick tool. So you're going to peel this off, and we'll put it up top. That way you have a place to write your name still. And then this is going to pop out when they open it. So super, super duper fun. So again, you could have embossed this with, which is going to be a little bit thick to mail, but that's okay. You can just put a little extra ounce stamp on there. But really super fun. Again, this one is in Blackberry Bliss with the background of crushed curry. And then this one we did with crushed curry, and then we have black. But they both do have a little wobbler on the inside. Super duper fun. Some great ideas for Halloween. I hope you guys will give these a try. If you need any of these supplies, feel free to please shop in my online store. And if you use this host code, you will definitely qualify for all the month specials. I have specials on there every single month. There's always a freebie for a $50 purchase. I do send a thank you card for every single order, no matter how large or small. And I do them all personally. I don't have a helper. I do all this myself. So I do send a thank you card and a little gift. So I appreciate you very much for supporting me. If you'd like to get more measurements for this, you can check out my blog, which is rachthestamper.com. You can always find me on Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube, Facebook, and my blog via Rach the Stamper. If you have any questions, you can send me an email at rachthestamper.stampinup.net. Nope, that's my online store. My email is rachthestamper@gmail.com. But if you'd like to get these, you can get them in my online store, which was rachthestamper.stampinup.net. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you like this video, I would love if you give it a thumbs up and share it with a friend. And if you are watching this on YouTube, if you haven't already, if you click subscribe and then you hit the little bell, it will actually notify you every time I make a new video, so you won't miss anything. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day.